Hello everyone and welcome to the Planning Game podcast, your weekly podcast for real world planning solutions to real world planning problems. My name's John McDermott from Town Planning Expert. Let's get right into it. Okay, welcome back everyone to the Planning Game, and joining me is a character, a man I've worked with over a number of years. It's Neil Briggs from Inspired Sales and Lettings. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, John.
How are you doing? Are you surviving? Because this is, of course, part of the Corona Chronicles, the COVID-19 affair. So
Yes.
How are you surviving?
We're doing okay. We've obviously all the government helped us out there. We should be all right. We are still operational in some form of sense because we've got some staff in the office. We've still got some empty properties we're trying to service for landlords. But we're okay, mate. We're all social distancing. I'm sure we'll be fine at the end of it.
Yeah, I'm sure we absolutely will. So, Neil, it's the first time we've had a sales and letting an estate agent join us on the game. And really, you're an estate agent that's become a developer. So do you want to sort of tell us your story and how that...
Yeah, fine. Well, I actually started in property as a mortgage broker. So back in 2001, I was...
Proper gamekeeper turned poacher then.
Yeah. So I qualified mortgage broker back in 2001, working in an estate agency, and sort of opened my own sales and lettings company in 2010 to get mortgage leads. And I haven't really given mortgage advice for the last sort of 5 years. Got a broker that works for me. So grown and grown. I've always had a few properties, and from where I was just buying single lets, just tried to look how to sort of escalate it from doing flips, and bumped into the white box boys just from the guy I was doing JVs with. We bought a house with a large back garden, and with the plan to get a bungalow in the back. I didn't know anything about building houses, so I went on Lloyd and Andy's second ever property developer secrets course, and had a bit of a mindset change. So it looked a bit bigger rather than single units, looking to build bigger houses and bigger multiple developments, and sort of grew from there. So I've got quite a few fingers in quite a few pies now. But yeah, that's kind of how it all originated, really. So
the serial property entrepreneur, I think is probably best to describe you, mate, to be absolutely fair. You do like to invest in a wide variety of stuff, and of course you're doing something with Andy and his comedy business partner.
Little and large, yeah.
On Simpson, aren't you? Who I call Pinky in the Brain. I'll let you decide which one is which.
Yeah, that's right. We're a third each on Simpsons. That's a development we've currently got underway.
Yeah, cool. And how is that going in light of the
we've pulled everyone off site at the moment for health and safety reasons. So I've got a few projects on the go, with a couple of finished, which is good. I'm just I've got a couple of contractors still willing to work on site, subject to social distancing on my refurbs. But yeah, it's a bit a tough times for everyone at the moment, but we're all in the same boat. It's kind of how I'm looking at it. So I think the people that come out of this operation will be a lot more stronger and leaner, and learning a lot. But Simpson's going okay. We're doing timber frame construction on that one.
Yeah.
We had a bit of a battle with that one to start to finish, which started from us hoping to get 9 houses to dropping down to 7, to the council changing the land. They're selling us to going for 4 larger units. So with anything in this game, it does change quite frequently, and you have to be adaptable and be able to look at how to make things work.
And that's part of the game, isn't it? That's part of the rules.
Absolutely.
Is that you have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to essentially alter your strategy dependent on the appetite of the council. Or in the case of Simpson, because Simpson's a really good example of where the land ownership changed. I mean, the amount of land they were selling you changed, which is rare for a vendor to just sort of turn around and say, we're not entirely sure we can sell you all of this.
Yeah, well, we obviously put our tender in quite some time ago now, and that was initially for minimum of 7 units. Things progressed. We were in for planning. They council asked us to try and get 9 or 10, so we pushed for our first app for 9, and then it was declined on overdevelopment because the land department that was selling it to us didn't seem to be speaking to the planning department, because they were trying to push us for more dwellings per hectare than the planning guidelines were allowing. Then there was another councillor which got involved for selling amenity land, and long story short, we had to agree to buy slightly less of it at a different price, and ended up with 4 dwellings when they were still trying to get us to put 5 on there. So we managed to squeeze in 4. So you think you're safe dealing with the council, but there's all these different departments which have different agendas that you're not nothing's safe until you've got it over the line, really.
And you deal with a lot of different authorities as well. I mean, we've dealt with work for you in Kettering and in East Northampton, Rushden.
I've been putting that one over in Hereford,
aren't they?
Yeah, so they're all different. I've not had much luck with East Northants. I've not had much luck with Milton Keynes either. Some of the projects we're doing, but like I say, you've got to keep plugging away, and it's if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, wouldn't they, John?
Oh, well, yeah, that's it. If it was easy, it would just be the way.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? And it kind of, part of the reason why I was so excited when you said you wanted to come and do an episode is because your development story, your journey has been fraught with difficulty.
Yeah.
All the way back to, the first project I helped you out with, which was, I seem to help you with rescue projects. It's really quite scary. But the first project I helped you out with, which was a rescue project in Kettering, to the next project, which was a rescue project in Rushden.
Yeah, the High Street.
It's the thing.
I mean, my first actual one was the back garden development, which I think you didn't think we'd actually get the planning on it. So I had to scale that one back down with a 4-bed detached in the back garden. So that one's on the market, and we've got people offering on that house at the moment. So I built a 2,500 square foot house in a house which had a third of an acre.
Nice.
Pagnell. So that's my actual first project got over the line. It took me quite a while to find something which actually worked. I was desperate to get a project underway, and that was the first one that actually worked, and is almost cashed out, so to speak. I've done a few retail PD schemes, which seems to be my niche. I'm quite good at looking at how to fit things in and around shops to have a bit of mixed use retail. So that one in Kettering, 2 planning units that the planning department thought was completely different setup to how it was. So we've had several applications in on that one, and back to the East Northants, where I've had to win a planning appeal with your help to get the 4 flats, which initially I wanted to start with. So yeah, it's most people have probably given up by now if they're in my position, but I can still see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk of niches. I mean, this is something I'm really passionate about as a planning consultant, but passionate about as a speaker on matters, really, is that I think what is often lost in a developer's journey, or certainly what is lost in an early part of a developer's journey, is the importance of niching out. So the importance of not looking at the whole market. We talk now of it as new developers syndrome. So they will go scattergun, and they will go, oh, I want to do this, and 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 I want to do everything.
Yeah.
Everything's exciting and everything's brave and interesting. But it's interesting you say that you're starting to find a niche now in that retail to resi sector, because that's a very underused sector, and in the here and now, it's actually probably quite a viable one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it turned in more by luck than judgment, really, because I bought the unit which my estate agency in Rushden is in. So I bought that building and converted the 2-bed flat above to a 5-bed HMO, did all that under PD, and that cash flows really well. And then I bought the shop across the road, which I initially was looking to get 6 flats and 2 retail on the ground floor. They then declined that, so I was going to go in upper story. Went back in, they declined it again, and then split it into 2 shops to go down the PD route after starting to work with yourself on it, which they then removed my PD rights. Then we had to go in for a planning appeal, which we won, and now effectively I've got 4 flats above 2 larger shops on the ground floor, so it will work out better for me.
Yeah.
But you know, having it 3 years on a bridging loan isn't much fun.
No, absolutely not. That's where the pain is.
Yeah.
But no bad is ever a true bad. It's just a learning point, isn't it?
That's right.
The big thing, I think, for all of your retail adventures in retail, shall we say, is it gives you those learning points to actually know how to finesse the model after the effect. And really then, especially now, especially with retail effectively being crushed, as I think we can all see it is.
But there is still a demand for it. You know, my model is that we keep a small, quite a small retail space at the front. So I recently I also have a property sourcing company. So there's a deal I was sourcing for a client who turned it down. I thought it's actually quite good. I'll buy it myself. So again, it was the tattoo shop one where we
I do remember it.
had to change use to get the 2 above. So we've got 3 flats out of that building and effectively a 30 square metre retail unit, which I'm renting for £150 a week. So the actual return on that small operation, we've got another tattooist that's gone back in there. So, you know, the whole building is yielding a great amount of money per month, with the flats being rented, 3 flats and a small retail. And I find the smaller retails, it's quite a good demand for that still, because local startup businesses don't want to take a huge space, and it's easier to rent than it is a large unit with huge rates and huge overheads. And you know, I think it's just being a bit clever and a bit responsive to the current conditions in the economy. So
why do you think so many developers are scared of it?
I think it's the rates. You know, if it's empty, you've got to pay the rate. So, you know, I'm having that on a few of my buildings at the moment, sort of ducking and diving to get around it somehow. But you know, it is difficult. And if you're buying a big retail unit, you get a big stonking rates bill. And I don't think everyone fully understands what you can do under PD. You know, with the Class M and the Class G, 2 of the tools I use quite a lot, and it's worked out really well for me. But there are setbacks like conservation areas and other things you have to be mindful of. But I think developers don't fully understand it, and they just get set in the mindset of, I need planning for so many houses, I just want to build from the ground up rather than doing the conversion works.
Yeah, I think that's true, to be fair. I think it's an often misunderstood part of the development world. You know, and the other thing is, you know, gurus, especially fake gurus, you know, one of my favorite definitions given by a gentleman called Shaf Razul, who's a former dragon. I've been watching his stuff on Facebook and on YouTube. It's brilliant. I actually emailed him and congratulated him and said, thank you for doing this. It's fabulous. He calls them furus, or fake gurus. The thing about the furus is that they will tell you to do strategies that they've been taught themselves. So you end up with that cascade of strategies down. So, you know, they get taught how to do office to resi, and then they go and teach people how to do office to resi without actually understanding the bit in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost where the benefit comes from you actually exploring the retail to resi.
Yeah, the way I threw myself into developments, like I do most things, I was kind of an all or nothing person. So I've got a few new build sites I was doing from the ground up. I was doing some conversions. I was still doing a few flips, and obviously still running the agency and all the other businesses. So all my stuff is linked within property. So I'm quite lucky that I was in the game already, so to speak, and had a good understanding of the industry, and had a few flips. And I started by converting flats from 1 beds to 2 beds.
Yeah. Very standard start of
development. Yeah, I did really well on that. And then with the stamp duty changes coming in with that extra 3%, sort of changed the game. And there was a lot of people thinking that they can make easy money doing flips. So that took all the margins out of it. There was less and less decent projects available. So the mixed use retail element has got the old style stamp duty, which I love. You know, if you've got anything 150 or under, it's 0. It all adds up. And without that extra 3%, and you can get, if I like to buy buildings where I try and get 3 flats out of, I like to refinance it and keep it rather than sell it, because it all goes in the portfolio at the end. So I've got a couple of being accepted recently, which I'm going to be working on, and you've got the no minimum size standards. Things I've learned working with yourself, working with Lloyd and Andy, and just being in around when I was on the mastermind really helped. So for instance, I remember you told me IKEA can do a flat in 25 metres squared, which they can, and I have done, and they work and they rent. Corridors are really wasted space. You've got to be a bit clever, and there's a lot of clever ideas. I can't think of the word that will protect fire routes. I've used spray mist taps and other things just to make sure that you can get round the building regs or be up to building regs, and it's it's a much cleverer use of space.
That's it, absolutely. And whilst we wouldn't encourage people to go below the 30 threshold now because of mortgage level limits,
But there is a caveat to that though, John. If you are retaining the whole property on a one title, then the commercial lender will look at the income yield basis of the whole unit. So
absolutely.
If you sell them individually, then the 30 square metres is quite a poignant thing to keep to, because it's down to subject to surveyor's comments. But if you keep in a building on one title, like I like to do, then the commercial lenders will lend on it as the entire building.
But then that's how to know. Again, that brings us back to the rules of the game. And one of my favourite sayings, I said it to Dorian last week, which was, if you know the rules of the game, in order to play the game, you have to know the rules.
Yeah.
In order to play the game well, you have to know where you can break them. And the rule currently out there in the market is 30 square meters is the golden limit, because you're not going to get a mortgage. But what you've just said, actually, now we can flex that rule, because we're holding the property in a different way, or we're holding it in a different mode, and that is really quite important. Let's talk about sourcing, because sourcing is one of my, I'm going to be honest, it's one of my least favourite of the property professions.
Okay.
Because I think it's and I don't know how you feel about this, I think it's the part of the framework, as it were, that has the worst name.
There's a low barrier to entry, and it's been sold by some of these furus, Mr. Scamuel, county town up north.
We weren't going to name drop, but
as a golden goose. But
let's utilise county town up north bloke, yes, as an example. Yeah.
So I think it is sold telling the dream to people that you can just come in and start making tens of thousands of pounds just by selling stuff that's on Rightmove. It's not as simple as easy as that. It's all about building relationships. I mean, I started doing the sourcing because I was at capacity with my projects and I couldn't take any more on, and because I put so much effort in trying to source good deals for myself, they were still coming on board. Therefore, I'd sell them on to my clients for a fee. Now we're quite good at looking at the angles and doing the analysis, which means that if it's good enough for me to buy, then I put it as a criteria it's good enough to source on for a fee. Whereas the people that just come into the industry are trying to peddle anything. They're spreadsheet peddlers, and it goes through 4 or 5, 6 different people before you get to the source of the actual direct to owner, and it's not as easy as some people make out.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I take the view, there are ethical sources who do the work and present a deal that is well framed and well rounded and has got good intelligence in terms of planning and good intelligence in terms of out. And essentially all the investor has to do is then deal with the intervening steps, as it were. And there are, you're right, bad sources effectively. We'll use the term snake oil salesman, and they are the ones, or as I like to say, they're BMW salesmen. They're the ones that nip onto Rightmove, go and grab a few deals, do a very quick spreadsheet on it, and say, well, you can do this with it, without actually tying anything together, and without doing the proper back-to-back exercise of, this is direct to vendor, yes, this is this, yes, this is this, yes, this is this, and here's all the linkages. And I think that's what differentiates you from others, really, isn't it?
We're a bit selective as well. We don't work with everyone for sourcing, because we want people that are going to take action. Unfortunately, there are still people on the flip side that you give them a gold-edged deal and they go, oh no, it's not the right time. You do a lot of time and effort and spend a lot of time. So we have a certain criteria we have to hit to be able to work with us. It's not like we open the doors to anyone and take your money. So we do take an upfront payment before we sort of start sending things over. I like to know that they know what they're doing. They know how to analyse deals. They've been through either previous projects themselves or have got some adequate training. So we won't just work with any Tom, Dick and Harry. It's got to be someone that's going to actually go through with the deal. To if we're offering it to someone, we want it to go through for both parties. And there's a lot of people that just don't take action, and then will just want to see what you're sending them and just go, oh yeah, no, that's not for me, that's not for me. So we don't advertise our sourcing service. It's very sort of low key. It's very much introduction based rather than yes, take your money and try and sell you some rubbish. It doesn't work like that. Our core business is the sales and lettings, but with all the development, all the other bits are kind of spun off from that. And we do get occasional deals that we don't advertise because we put it through to our choice investors that we know will actually work through and actually get things done.
But I think the other sort of big thing for me, and what you said earlier, was you had the deal on the tattoo parlor, sitting there. You put it in front of someone, they didn't want it. And actually, I think the greatest test of a deal sourcer is if they'll look at that deal and go, sod it, I'm having it. It's mine. I'll do it. Because I'm going to do it.
Yeah, we can talk about the numbers on that deal. So that was a purchase for 250,000. So that was a retail on the ground floor and a 2-bed apartment above. Tattoo shop, so it didn't have the PD rights for class M on the ground floor. So
or G above.
Or G above. So we had to change use. So you worked with me to start to finish on that. So we changed the use on the ground floor to a A2, which gave us the ability to do 2 above. That's no plan. It's just building rate, straight in, speedy conversion. We went for full planning on the ground floor for a 37 metre squared 1-bed because it had a slight extension. So it's a flat roof property, not the nicer things, but that at the back end of that, the conversion cost in the region of about 100,000, splitting the utilities, doing it fully to building regs. Then we've got a valuation of the back end. It's come out at 500,000. So
nice.
Putting all the money back out to start again. And the flats are rented at 700. The shop's rented at 150 a week. So it's a great cash flowing asset from a purchase price of 250. And someone turned their nose up at that, unfortunately. And that person is still not buying anything as far as I'm aware. So, a lot of people just like the idea, but never actually put things into action. And
so that's interesting. Do you track the people who are taking action, and do you track the people who aren't?
I'm a pretty good judge of character, and he was a really nice guy that initially said he wanted it, and then he couldn't get the numbers to work. And some people just can't get the numbers to work because they're so overly cautious. And it is a bit more difficult doing conversion calculation. It is new build because there is some grey areas, but there's not a great deal that can go wrong when you're working on the smaller units. I did not allow for the Western Power needing to dig up a lot more than the road they did, so where I'd allowed 1,500 per utility, it actually came in at 10,000 to get the utility split. But you have a bit of a variable in there as a contingency, so I think I allowed for 90 and it came in 100, so 100, 110, something similar like that. So the fact is that he's still out there looking at deals, thinking about doing stuff. As nice as a guy is, 2-3 years ago he could have been in it and done the deal and got it under his belt and started with.
Absolutely, and it's that taking action or having faith and trust in the mathematics. That is so important. So
sometimes you've got to think as well that even if it does not always stack up to the numbers, you don't get all the money back out. If you have to leave in 10, 15,000, it's still a good investment. What else are you going to do with 10, 15,000? You've got a single buy to let you might be able to buy with that. At the end of it, you've got a 4 cash flowing units. There's smarter ways to do things. It does help scaling things up. So don't always be, can't get all my money back out. If you've got to leave a bit in, it's not the end of the world sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's still property you can leverage against to provide equity for the next deal or whatever else. So it is, as you're right, it's a viable solution. So what's the next big thing for Neil Briggs? What's the next big sort of move you're going to make in terms of, because you're not just Mr. Entrepreneur, you're Mr. Marathon Runner.
Yeah.
You went on this insane, how many marathons in how many days?
I ran 52 marathons in 52 weeks last year, finishing on Christmas Eve. So I Yeah, I was, trying to get into the 100 marathon club. So I'm at 92 now. I'm 8 away, but all the marathons
Wow.
suspended at the moment. So until
So you're hitting some very lonely runs.
yeah. So I've just got to keep my fitness ticking over. But no, I think what's next for me, I'm just going to see how this all pans out, John. Really get the projects finished I've got on the board, and see what happens. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming out of the back of this. I'm quite excited. There's going to be a lot of landowners are going to be more keener to sell at realistic prices where they were delusional before.
Yeah.
It's going to hit, unfortunately, it's going to hit some people hard, but it's going to make people be a bit more realistic. So whereas people wanted silly money for properties before, we see it time and time again. We go out, we assess, we explain how it's going to work for someone, because it's still what is worth to them is a good value, but they wanted 10-20% more than realistically what it's worth to a developer. So
still seeing that third, aren't we? Which is ridiculous. But
yeah.
But yeah, no. So I think I mean, like us all, we have to sort of take a view on what's happening next in our development journey. I mean, for our developments, we've got applications in planning, and the fort, for example, where we're just slowing things down a little bit and making sure that that's going to be running on its own timescale rather than rushing anything, because now's not the time to rush.
No, but there's always going to be a demand for housing at the moment, and if you're being smart, I mean, we've got connection with some people in social housing. We've got connections with, other organisations, the YMCA, for instance, that wanted to work closely with me on some of the units. So, even if there's no sale for retail buyers at the end, there is still going to be a call for units for other purposes. So you just got to think a bit differently. I mean, I was talking to one of my investors yesterday, an action taker who completed on a unit this week. In sunny Rushden, and he was asking me about what happened in 2008. And I was a mortgage broker at the time, and I said to him, I think it's a completely different situation back then. I was arranging 125% mortgages for people in 2007, 2008. We were doing
completely over the top. Yeah.
There was a company called GMAC who had a product called Unlimited Adverse Credit, which you could get on a self-cert. So you could have not paid your mortgage for 12 months. You could have no proof of income. As long as you signed a bit of paper and had a 40% deposit, they would still give you a new mortgage. So that was part of the thing that caused the crash back in 2008. And I think looking back now, the way they've been a lot more stringent on the lending, they've been a lot more cautious. A lot more people have got hurt money in the game, and there's none of this no money down, new build flats, 10% gifted deposit. That's all gone, which caused the last crash. So I think we may see a very slight correction, but things are going to pick up, and it's still a good investment if you're investing long term into property, buy to let. It's not a short term gain. People will still get a good return. I get the best return out of my rentals. Anything else I do. So, it is a long term game, and people will still be buying. Prices will go up a bit. Prices will go down a bit. It does change. It is never fixed. You've got to allow that. And I don't see that this is going to cause a huge crash. Hopefully, I'm right. We just got to come back out the end of it and deal with it that way. But there is other aspects to look at with social housing, shared ownership. There's housing associations. There's other ways to do things rather than selling direct to the mainstream retail buyer.
Cool. Thank you for that, Neil. That's brilliant. Before I let you sort of chuck in a couple of questions my way, what would you say is the sort of biggest lesson learnt over your sort of years, if you were to sort of take a brand new property investor aside, fatherly hand over shoulder and say, do this? What would that one thing be?
Don't take on too much. I think I took on too much at the start, and some of the projects overran a little bit cost wise, where I've spread myself too thinly. So definitely don't spread yourself too thinly, and stay close to where because one of the projects that wasn't as successful was far out of reach over in Hereford Way. So that was that'd be my things to say. Don't take on too much, and keep it close to home.
Cool, thank you, mate. Well, it is the planning game, and we haven't had any questions to John in a little while. So fire away if you want to ask anything. Fire.
Yeah. So I've, as you know, got another case in Milton Keynes where we've been doing an office to resi. I think I'm on my 4th application with this one, which seems to be declined on the parking. So there's a bit of a grey area, isn't there, with PD schemes, whether they can do it under parking. I know you've explained to me before. It might be helpful to listeners to have the definition of how they can utilise. Is it impact on highways? They sort of get under it with it.
So what they have to do is demonstrate a severe impact of the highway safety network. Okay, so they have to demonstrate that by not providing parking, the development will cause an accident.
Okay.
That's what they have to do, right? Now, normally they do that based on accident statistics. Now, Milton Keynes isn't the greatest for that, because every road in Milton Keynes is a 70-mile-an-hour highway, pretty much. And Milton Keynes is a giant racetrack. So it's a little bit easier for MK to turn around and say, no, we need off-street parking, because if we allowed people not to have off-street parking, they would park in areas that were inappropriate, and that would cause an accident. So the knock-on effect of not providing car parking for flats here would be an accident here. But the burden is on them to prove that. The burden is on them to turn around and say, that's the case. The issue that you have is that there's only two ways after a refusal to deal with the refusal. You either challenge it, and we've been down that line. I don't think we've been down that line on this case before, but we've
got an appeal in. Yeah, we've got an appeal in and a resubmission.
You're running an appeal.
Yeah.
And what we have to do there is say the council has no evidence. This development will not cause a highway safety impact. So it will not result in an accident.
Okay.
Yeah. By the fact that there's no car parking. Now, given that I know the case very well, and that the building in question is surrounded by, shall we say, a giant car park.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
I would imagine that the inspector is going to have a look at that and go, where's the parking problem?
Yeah.
Now, I think what the council are going to try and assess or assert, which is very common, is that the parking demands for offices are different to the parking demands of dwellings, right? Yeah. Because offices, people park in offices between 9 and 5, and people park in dwellings when they're getting home for EastEnders or Emmerdale or many other soap operas are available, right? So after 7 o'clock. I think what's going to fall over for the council in their argument here is that the car park is empty at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Because there's no one in the offices there. Right? And there's no restriction on car parking there. That's not a problem at all. There's no restriction in car parking. So because there's no restriction in car parking, and because the car park is empty, the inspector can reasonably make a judgment on whether or not you can park a car there. The other thing is that you've got allocated spaces, haven't you? So
yeah, we've actually got 7. We're going for 7 one-beds. We've got 7 allocated spaces, but they were being pedantic about the red line plan because we didn't put the red line around 4 spaces in the communal car park, and then they were asking for a red line to show how to access it from the road. So they've actually failed to validate the previous application because the red line plan wasn't sufficient to show how they could get to the spaces, even though it's at the end of the road.
So I think they're pushing the bounds of acceptability to the absolute limit.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, I mean, we've had inspectors simply just turn around and say, look, there's car parking. What is the actual problem here? But you can't offer that up as an argument to councils because they will always come up with the argument that, well, that was in Northamptonshire and we're Buckinghamshire. And therefore, because we're Buckinghamshire, we have a different sensibility. We've got a different set of rules. And it's about knowing the rules. So what we have to do essentially is either challenge it through a resubmission, which we've done, or appeal it, which we've done.
Yeah.
And it will be a case of, in today's marketplace, it'll be a case of who comes first.
Yeah. I should imagine the resubmission decision will come first. Whether they agree at this time, we'll just have to wait and see. And if they fail it, then we'll just have to wait for it, I think.
But we have the appeal running, and that's the important thing. And that's what we call a hydra strategy. It's double-headed, a resubmission and an appeal. Where I've done that in the past, both have come back with an approval. And then the client has been able to choose which one they want to do. In your case, it's academic. It's 7.
Yeah,
That's not changing. And it's just whichever car parking spaces you want to allocate. So it is a bit of a strange one for especially given the location. It'll be. I know that Kirsty's been working on it with you, and
I mean, they've also approved other units in the block, which makes it even more strange.
Paradoxical. Because they're supposed to be consistent on their decision making, and Milton Keynes don't tend to be. So that will be something that gets picked up by the inspector, because I'm sure Kirsty has highlighted to the inspector all of those other approvals in the same.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, she's been really good to Kirsty, to be fair. So, I mean, the next question follows on from this. So, where we, assuming we get the planning through for the 7, we need to make external changes to the building. We have to submit that as a full planning application, or is that part of the PD?
That submits as a full planning application, and that is just for the external changes on their own.
Right.
Okay? And weirdly, internally, you have to show the building as what it is. So you have to show it as offices and not as flats.
Okay.
Because at the moment, the building is offices, it is not flats.
Right.
So you have to show it as it is, rather than as it wants to be. You can say on the application, this is to facilitate this forward conversion later, but you must show it as it currently is. Okay.
Right. Right. So 2 other questions for you then. So are they going to extend the light industrial PD? So that's in August, isn't it, this year?
That's October that dies, and in reality, what they're probably going to do is replace it.
Right.
The replacement is a knockdown and rebuild to deal with the Watford problem, which was the bloke who tried to convert a commercial garage without any windows. So they're solving that problem for both office to resi and light industrial and other commercial use types by allowing you to knock down the building and replace it with a building of equal size, potentially. Again, these are all in potentia. By the time someone listens to this in October, it might be in, and I might be completely wrong. But the current guidance is that they're going to bring back an old idea, which is knock down and rebuild like for like, allowing external changes and a much better building in order to convert to resi. That's what they're probably going to replace it with. Okay, fine. And so on that point then, so as a developer, if the building's sound and structurally usable for a conversion, then would you be allowed to just convert as is under P? I don't know. That's an excellent question. A lot of people have been asking me this, and at the moment, it's for the people listening at home, it's April. And these permit development rights are due in the summer, so due in July. And I simply don't know, because at the moment I can't look into the future because there's precious little publicised about it. I think we're going to have to wait and see what comes out as a result of the consultations. Right. Well, another thing which is hopefully something coming in the future, which I've heard a little about, I'm not 100% up to speed with all the ins and outs, is airspace rights under PD. That's quite an exciting thing. Yeah, 2 stories of purpose-built blocks of flats. And that is quite exciting. And again, we have no idea what that's going to look like yet. But it is very carefully couched in the guide, in the white paper. Okay. And we're probably going to see a variation on the airspace consultation, which says you can't be the tallest building in the street. You have to match height. It's really for that infill where you're trying to fill in a gap. Yeah. And it is above purpose-built blocks, so it's not designed to go and ramp competing uses inside the same block. It's to add to existing purpose-built. And would it go across mixed-use retail as well, wouldn't it? Don't know. It looks like it will, because they're purpose-built buildings. They're flats with retail at ground floor. But until we actually see the detail, this is the problem. We're kind of guessing at this stage.
Yeah, I think people have been speculating buying a lot of freeholds on the basis this might be coming in. So we've seen a surge over the last sort of 18 months of actually people inquiring for freeholds where previously no one really wanted them because they're unmortgageable. There's no real sort of value apart from the ground rent and service charges. So we have noticed that people are being a bit clever and trying to forward think that the change is coming in that space, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you. That was brilliant. Neil, thank you very much for joining me on the planning game. If people want to get hold of you, how do they do so?
My website is inspiredagents.co.uk. I'm contactable on there. I'm on Facebook as Neil Briggs. So take your pick, or LinkedIn. I'm not really on LinkedIn that much, which I should be, maybe a bit more. But yeah, I'm quite easy to find.
Right, brilliant. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, John.
Right. Next time, I know who is my guest. My guest is some bloke off the street called Lloyd Girardi. Mr. Whitebox himself, or Richard Hammond's smaller cousin.
Yeah.
I'll let you be the judge. Thank you, Neil, for joining me. I'll catch you guys next time on the planning game. See you very soon.
Bye-bye.